Hey, it's Chronologically Gaming, the only channel that's perpetually retro because we're playing every video game in order of release. Nowhere else can you get this much video game crammed into this amount of time. Welcome everyone to At Some Point in March 1982, where we last played Cosmic Super Bowl, the very first video game where someone played the handheld on Mattel and said, let's make that a computer game. And with that, let's press forward and see our next game. We're next going to the TRS-80. Remove the color. It's just the original TRS-80. This will be the Model 3, and this is Defense Command. Let's take a look at Defense Command, starting with the box. Excellent science fiction. Really gives me vibes of Terminator, which has the original come out yet, 1982? Or is that going to be later? I think it's 84 is the original Terminator. So there you go, Defense Command. Another one by Big 5 Software. Love Big 5. This one is another one by Bill Hogue and Jeff Conue, which I've read this is the last title that Bill Hogue ever programmed on the TRS-80. We flip it over in the back. Really nice presentation. They show the game mode, high score display. It's going to be like a very classic arcade game that you can play on your TRS-80, along with a few other games down in the bottom left corner, and it's available with the futuristic Tristic. The new exciting versatile Tristic is compatible with our games. Yes, so we have a joystick for the TRS-80. And there's our 5 1/4 floppy disk. 32K needed for this one. It does look like an insect, yes. All right, let's pop in and play some Defense Command. It is At Some Point in March 1982 by Bill Hogue and Jeff Conue. Really excited for these. The Big 5 games are so fun. Yes, I'm expecting voices. I'm expecting cool sound effects. Okay, so we have the high score table if you want to. No high scores are there right now, but let's see instructions. Defense Command. Mission objective, protect fuel cells from aliens. Use the arrow keys to move left and right. Press F, at, or spacebar to fire missiles. You got 3 different buttons, all right. And then there's our enemies. Oh yeah, the blown up pixel. I just really love it on the TRS-80. It looks awesome. Each player is initially given 3 laser command bases. Game ends when all bases or fuel cells are destroyed. An extra base is awarded at each 10,000 points. Players must catch falling fuel cells or they'll be lost. Okay, so we're not really rescuing people. We're rescuing fuel cells. Any number key to fire the antimatter bomb can destroy all aliens on the screen. Nice. Okay, so we're pushing 1 for a 1-player game. Player 1. Yes! I knew it! Oh, look at that. So impressive. We gotta get more games in this style. Oh, I couldn't shoot the giant. It does really look like a beetle there. Even more than the front of the box. Or coming at us with insects. So bottom of the screen is all of the fuel cells. Different types of aliens are coming down. It is just move left, right, and shoot. Just like Space Invaders. No reason to use any of my ABMs yet. I just love that they made arcade games this late in the TRS-80's life cycle. I mean, this came out in 1977. Or at least the Model 1. Oh, not good. Get him. Oh, and the animation when you blow up is fantastic. It's almost like right when they figured out... Attack! Oh, nice. When they figured out they could make the TRS-80 talk and have joystick support, it just makes it a better game system. But it's pretty much all Big 5. Attack! They always polish the game up and make you feel like you're playing an arcade game. Imagine a world where arcade was king and everybody copied the arcade. Nope. Attack. I don't know, yeah, like the lower resolution of King of Balloon. Speaking of which, we've seen I would only say one. I can't even think of one right now of a King and Balloon variant on computers. We've seen tons of Galaxian, Space Invaders. Attack! Does it drop in the same spot? Oh, it still blows up the fuel cell. We're supposed to be able to catch it, I think, after we shoot it down. Yeah, they do look like people, which is what I would expect because of Defender rescuing humans. No! Or maybe like from Stratovox. Oh, no. ABMs are gone. Oh, and I don't know what that is. Oh, you gotta shoot it down before it gets there. Is it gonna wipe out all of them or just one? Okay, just one. At least it just drops in one place. And I still only have one fuel cell left, so this isn't going to last too long. Nope, there it is. What? I fired as fast as I could, and I guess that's how they do the game over. They have the giant bug ship come at you because the only place you can go is left and right. Oh, 4th place. Looks like Jeff Conn, you just barely got Bill Hogue out of there. That's cool. Can we do everything? Yeah, we can. And probably most likely save the high score. Hey, it's better than just saying game over on the top of the screen. Well, Defense Command, I could say it's above average. I could do a 3.5 star. I really could because I just really enjoy how well it plays on the TRS-80. It's pretty much a standard game, though, for the time. I'm around 3 stars. So I'm going to go 3 stars for Defense Command. A blast for 1982 for sure. And with that, let's see where we're going now. The next thing is our main event.
This is what you've been asking me for over the last few months. The Atari video game. And Space Invaders.
Space Invaders.
Let's see how long that keeps you amused.
Discover the new Atari video computer system. 45 cartridges containing over 700
Pele Soccer, Super Breakout.
Games.
Dad, I'm beginning to get a bit bored with this.
Typical. You never stick with anything long.
No one can beat us at our own game. Oh, that's pretty prideful there, Atari. And by the time that kid does grow up in the commercial, that's pretty much where we are now, right, I think? So this is Electronic Games issue 2, the March issue. This is so good. This magazine is amazing. I didn't know about this specific magazine they're about to check out. The first one was the only one I had heard about before doing the channel, and then this ends up turning into other names besides Electronic Games, but this covers everything. This is like a time capsule of what we want to do on the channel in a magazine. It is the most exciting thing before Nintendo Power, at least close to that. So, Player's Guide to Electronic Science Fiction Games. This one covers video games, computer games, standalone games, and arcades. Notice it says video games because they don't really refer to it as console. A video game is a console game, at least what this magazine says. All right, so this is the front cover. It's a decade of programmable video games. They're actually going to go through history from their perspective. The 10 years between 1972 and 1982, which is really cool. And then they have strategy sessions for the UFO game on Odyssey 2, Star Raiders, Jawbreaker, and Scramble. And they also did the best games of 1981 in this issue. The reason I wanted to showcase this one and spend a lot of time on this magazine is I want to use their categories for the magazine, kind of show how they're a little short-sighted because our channel goes through a global perspective of every single game all over the world. And I want to give you my opinion, what we've seen so far, and what I would rate as the game of the year or the computer game of the year and so forth from 1981. All right, so let's get into it. The first one's an ad for Atari. Yeah, right? Yeah, this is so good. And I just love that it covers so much. So here's the Atari ad. Of course, no one has Space Invaders. No one has Missile Command. Oh, no, nobody has Warlords. Well, actually, I don't think we saw anything close to Warlords, but it's essentially a breakout clone. But whenever I see this, I just think of all the things we've seen on computers. Like, what about Polaris on the Coco? That's Missile Command. I'd say done better than Atari's Missile Command. And then Asteroids. Atari, there's no comparing it with any other video game. At this point, it feels a little prideful that Atari is on their pedestal. They're walking thinking, I got billions of dollars. There's no way they're going to take us down. We're the most creative. We're covering all over the world. We're about to release our newest console and then also go to other regions. But how the pride fall. Only Atari makes the games the world wants most. The entire world. Oh, right. Yeah, the 2800. I actually am preparing that for 1983 just to show the consoles that come out in Japan, and then the Atari shows up in Japan at the same time, just for fun. Yeah, it's a little too late. All right, so we're going to breeze by the table of contents because we're going through everything for the magazine. Here's another ad for a container for your Atari. You can change this to this, which is a very retro, it seems kind of 70s case for your video games, but it only stores 10 video game cartridges for your Atari. Be kind of cool to have nowadays for your Atari collection, but you can see only 10 games. That's not a big deal. That's by VidLid, the video game dust cover and storage unit. For all the ads we see, most magazines, it is slightly annoying, but back in this age, seeing ads for the off-brand joysticks or ways to hold your video games is so cool. All right, so the beginning starts with one of the editors, Frank Laney Jr., talking about the joys of electronic gaming. This article is interesting because he points out like what's so good about video gaming and the differences between this culture change compared to movies and music and so forth. And also that it can incorporate the entire family because you can have, an 18-year-old playing a 35-year-old at a video game. You can play sports games against kids and adults and they all have a great time. But it's more of affirming the how good video games are. That's what this article is. And he points out how video games are good for your health, catharsis, to feel better, because you obviously want to make sure you don't play too much of the game and have make sure you're not playing to the point that you get addicted. But we already seen that happening by 1982. All right, so electronic games are certainly more helpful and less harmful than a good many of other activities that occupy people's leisure hours. So he's trying to defend all those video game players in this article. Go away, Spoil Sports. You're interrupting our game. And now we have the reader reply. This actually has a few interesting things that people say. On the far left side, VCRs meet videograms, another typo, video games. This is someone saying, hey, you want to record video games, how to set up your VCR to your television to record games, and even use it on a cassette tape to capture the audio and make an Atari greatest hits is what he says. And then someone has a suggestion of the last issue showing the number of players or maximum number of players, because they didn't say in the last issue Warlords was a 4-player game. They just said multiplayer. So he's saying you need to tell everyone it has 4 players. And then they said, yes, we will consider doing that. Thanks. Then we have someone from England in the center here. Overseas arcading. Is it possible to receive electronic games in England? And they say, good news. You'll find details in the issue. I don't know for sure if they did it in England. But then... oh, this is someone that's wanting video games. They were actually sending a request in. Can you make the Battle Zone on your Atari VCS or Eagle or Phoenix? And then over on the right side, they say, yeah, it looks like that Battle Zone is perhaps coming to the Atari 800, the computer. And then they even said in Analog magazine, the other one we check out, they're developing Battle Zone right now as we speak in March 1982. Oh, yeah, I had Atari 2600 controllers that were hand-me-downs, but they still lasted me till the very end. They're tough. Yeah, I never had to replace them. All right, and we scroll down a little bit further. The next is Inside Gaming. This one is a deep dive into Odyssey's or Odyssey 2's Lord of the Rings, The Quest for the Rings, which is the game that we played last year in 1981. One of the best. I give it 5 stars because it blends the board game and video game. And this one just breaks down how the game came to be and what they did to work on it. And there's an example in the bottom left of the whole board itself with a giant box for Quest for the Rings. Really, really cool. Real treat. They spelled Ed Averett's name incorrectly in the bottom left corner. It's Averett, not Averat. But it looks like Steve, they say Steve Lehner also helped with this one. And then the design was done by Ron Bradford. And this is the interview with all 3 of the creators talking about Quest for the Rings. And they talk about the other games that they're doing in the, what was the series called again? The Master Strategy series for the Odyssey 2. And then the other one was Conquest for the World, which is an example in the top left. And then a screenshot for Quest for the Rings in the top right. So the other titles in their series, the Master Strategy series, weren't very good. Quest for the Rings was the true gem, the first one, and then Conquest of the World was next. I think we've already seen that one, but then the third one that's coming up, they said they haven't finished it yet, is the Great Wall Street Fortune, which is, it's a business game that you would play with a combination board game and video game. But the first one, Quest for the Rings, is definitely the good one. And then they have over here the example comparing the first Odyssey, and there it is. The very first Odyssey, 1972, with a lot of overlays. Even the original cartridges in the bottom left, they didn't even call them cartridges on the Odyssey 2. That's one we played on the channel, and the only reason I played it is because I found simulators that you could simulate what the overlay was like with the lights on the screen. But cool throwback. It's 10 years later, and this is showing the first Odyssey and how the Quest for the Rings compares to it. Love seeing all that, because you got a lot more things whenever you bought a game on the original Odyssey. We're now starting to see that for the PC world. Well, I shouldn't say just PC, computers in general. All right, so let's go to the next one. This next page is the question, is the Atari 400 the ultimate game machine? And this one is going to break down all of the reasons why the Atari 400 is amazing. And they didn't say 800 just because of the price point. You're getting a lot more for the price of the 400. And there's the example of the Atari 400. We usually play on the 800 because, the keyboard and a little bit more memory, but they have all the specs for the system. It's so funny seeing in 1982 them comparing and showing specs for a system, like check out the RAM on that one, and it's 16K. All right, so the next page is showing an example of basketball, which was one of the best basketball games when we first played it on the Atari home computer. And then they break down all the specs here. It costs $400, at least they claim it so here. And the microprocessor is the 6502, 128 colors, 16 at 8 intensities each, 8 intensities each. 4 voices for sound. The keyboard is the monoplanar keyboard, not the 800, which has the actual clicking keyboard. 16K RAM, uses basic pilot and assembler. And then the games they say that you should play is Star Raiders, Basketball, Space Invaders, Asteroids, Missile Command, 3D Tic-Tac-Toe. Oh, these are the ones from Atari, I see. Then Computer Chess, Video Easel, and Music Composer, which we didn't see those because they're more applications, Video Easel and Music Composer. But then they also give you some heads up of what the computer words are, so you know all about computers. In this magazine, the Electronic Games issue 2 is now going to explain more computer side of games rather than just the console or arcade, which is awesome. I mean, incorporate more, I say. And here's the full spread of everything all together. Is the Atari 400 the ultimate game machine? What do you think, L. Curtis B? Is the Atari 400 the ultimate? Or at this point, would it trump the Coco? Because I know the Coco is going to take off. 83 and 84, we're going to see a lot better games on it. All right, so let's go down to the next section. This is a review for an arcade called Castle Park. If anybody went there, let me know. I am not familiar with this place, but they're saying it's a high-class arcading spot. This is in Riverside, California, and they have a lot of screenshots of the inside. Tons of arcade cabinets. It's borderline bar, but a really upscale bar or pub with the arcade cabinets. It's pretty nice. 17,000 square foot amusement center, and you can see there's someone playing Turtles on the system with... I can't see the other ones in the background. Oh, okay, is that Starfire is another one I can point out in the background. Oh, right? Yeah, why 3D tic-tac-toe and not 3D chess, right? Oh, it also has things attributed to Star Wars at this arcade. And then the next page shows Tempest in the top left with tons of pool tables. Nice. Very cool. And then the full spread of everything all together. Looks really fun for 1982. And I guess this is their way of saying, hey, we also are doing arcade games in the magazine. Giving you a review of a specific spot to play arcade games. All right, next section is the Game Doctor. The Game Doctor is in. And people have questions that are not based on troubleshooting. You know, like I have a problem with my computer, or the cord is broken on my system or something like that. This one is actual pretty good stuff. Like one of them is on the left side. Why do some video game companies like Atari make systems with detachable controllers, and then other ones like the Odyssey and Mattel hardwire them into the console? And then this breaks down the advantages and disadvantages of doing that. I say no. Do not attach them to the console. But I shouldn't say that in 1982, because next year the Famicom comes out and those controllers are plugged into the system, and I'd say that one is the best console in 1983 with the controllers, you know, attached. One of them, the second controller, is the one with the microphone. Oh, that's so cool. Like above all the arcade cabinets? That would be awesome. Yeah, so really cool that they bring up the controllers, because majority of the time you don't want to play with the same controller on the same system. You want to switch it out for different peripherals. And then the next question is, in reference to your review of Star Raiders on the Atari 800, I'm turning to you for some advice. I own an Apple II, not an Atari, and I'd like to know which of the current available programs for my computer would be most like the Atari Space game. This article I want to hit on first and foremost because I did not know this. The Game Doctor says, well, if you don't have an Atari home computer to play Space Raiders, but you Star Raiders, then and you have an Apple II, you need to check out Space Raiders from United Software of America. It isn't the Atari's game's long lost twin, but it's a kissing cousin. Now, I didn't even know this game existed. We do have a Space Raiders. The only Space Raiders I knew of on the Apple was going to be coming out in 1983 by a totally different company. I didn't know there was another Space Raiders by United Software of America that is a Star Raiders clone. So because of that, I've added it back in. I found out it was 1980 when it came out. So a lot of times when I go through these magazines, I see the game and I'm like, wait, I've never heard of that game. So it was another mismatch. Same name on the Apple II, but comes out earlier than the one I was thinking of. But who knew? A Star Raiders game called Space Raiders on the Apple II. Thanks, Electronic Games. All right, so we have another one. I think they asked this in the last issue about screen burning in on their television screen. Or they're explaining how Activision has some games that they continue to keep things moving, like the logo or changing color so it doesn't burn on the screen, and if that's going to be a problem or not. Now, back at this point, I don't remember anything. Like I had a black and white television first, CRT, and then the later one I had a Toshiba. So whenever it comes to screen burn-in, I don't remember anything, and I kept games static on the screen for a long time. Never had a problem with it. But here they're giving you examples that if you play the games on Activision or a few other ones, they're making sure that if you do leave it like that or keep playing, that it won't burn in, so not a problem. Oh yeah, Star Raiders was so big. We played the very first version of it, and it was top marks all the way. So good. Oh, like Pong? We're talking the Pong clones? Because that was pretty much just light on the screen. Now that we got different colors, I never had a problem with it. All right, so another one is using the RF video on your system. Like I have a digital channel selector. We'll breeze by that. I have heard of recently about a Pac-Man type game that will be available soon for the Atari VCS. Now, this is the March issue, and at this point, this is right when Pac-Man came out, so they said it's not going to be a Pac-Man type game. It's going to be actually Pac-Man. Get excited! But we've already seen it on the channel. Oh, the borders were burning. Okay, that sounds familiar. Remember the borders burning on the sides. All right, so let's go to the next page. This is the ad for KC Munchkin on the Odyssey 2. Another really good Pac-Man game, top-down maze game that you can program yourself. Loved it. And right after that one is the Odyssey your best buy in video games? Decide for yourself. If you're interested in an inexpensive video game, compare Odyssey 2 has better hand controllers. Comes with an alphanumeric keyboard. Now, I've held both controllers. I'm still firm on Atari, but I'd say the Atari joystick probably because that's the one I was first to use in this generation rather than Odyssey 2's. But yeah, maybe if you had only the Odyssey, then you get it. But I would say the Odyssey 2 wasn't the joysticks that were better than Atari. It's because it had the full keyboard, and that's what they sold it for. So they break down that at this point, Odyssey 2 has about 40 games, and you can see the cartridges with the handle in the top. There it is, Odyssey 2. Yeah, no way joystick was better. Atari had the joystick on this. I really would like to know a comparison or opinions on this generation of console games, what control was really the best. Because I love that you can plug in the Atari VCS joystick into the Atari computer, the 800 or 400, and it's so great. So full computerized typewriter-like keyboard, and no, it's not a typewriter-like keyboard. It's like a membrane keyboard. And then what the experts say about the Odyssey 2, why you should get it. Another kind of tip of we're flooding the market here with which one's the better system. The Odyssey 2, why you should buy it. That's what I used to do. I used to have tons and tons of classic consoles and hardware until they were gone and lost. Or eventually, whenever I realized that the collection couldn't be kept the whole way I wanted, then I eventually just gave some away or sold some. So I have a small museum now, but not what I used to have. All right, so what do they say about the game cartridges? So they talk about Speedway, Spinout, Cryptologic. Oh, so this is pretty much just them really selling the Odyssey 2. So every single one of these games, they just rave about them on how everything's so good. Like Quest for the Rings. Well, Quest for the Rings is pretty good. But UFO, the best science fiction game. 3rd Annual Arcade Awards, Odyssey 2 says. Or War of Nerves, which I would say that's pretty clever. War of Nerves was pretty ingenious. Yeah, very sad tale. I'd like to not get into it again. And then they talk about football in the system, which is all right. I'd say Bally Astrocade had the better one. And then Out of This World. And then, yeah, it's just pretty much everyone saying Odyssey 2 games are so good. And what owners say, what educators say. It's a giant ad for selling the Odyssey 2. And there you go, all 40, maybe it's all 40, but the 40 games that you could play on your Odyssey 2, broken down in categories. The arcade games, there they are there. Most of these, again, were designed by Ed Averitt, so the characters and the artwork looks really similar. Not to fault Ed Averitt. I mean, it's really good. I love the creativity of the Odyssey 2 games. We've taken a look at every single one of these so far. I don't think we have Pachinko yet. and probably for good reason. And then we have also the sports titles. Alpine skiing, computer golf, baseball, bowling. Yeah, a majority of these we've seen. We've also seen the European version of the Odyssey 2, which is the Philips Video Pack. And then educational titles and strategy games. Yes, Quest for the Rings. And they put it as strategy because I don't think they really had role-playing on the console at the time. All right, so let's go to the next page. This is how to subscribe to electronic games. And I would be subscribing. If it was March 1982 and I picked this up in a news rack, yeah, let's subscribe now. Just $15. Send it in. All right, this next one is so cool. It is the history of video games thus far. 10 years from 1972 to 1982, and how they describe the history of video games. So I'm going to go to the full spread first, because it kind of breaks it into two. There it is. A decade of programmable video games. So over on the left side, they show the master component to Mattel's Intellivision. Whenever it came out, the first model of it, offers keypad controllers and super graphics. And then they show the Activision, the rise of the third-party software with Dragster and Checkers. Here's something that's interesting, though. Right above my head is the Magnavox Odyssey 300. I've never heard of this one. Model 7500 was an early entry. This is one of those Pong clones, but this model specifically, I do not know about this one. Came out right before the Magnavox Odyssey. So this model was before the actual interchangeable cartridges one. And then another one down the bottom right is the Magnavox Odyssey 3000. Model 7514 had 4 game options, and it's basically still all Pong clones. We did not check out the first generation of consoles because they were pretty much all different variations of Pong. Maybe because it was Activision. Because Activision Checkers was all right. But this is pretty cool for the history. If you start from the very beginning, it says that they started in 1962. And they also give a nod to Magnavox, but they say in 62, Steve Russell was a graduate student at MIT. He's the one that eventually made Space War. And so they follow the history that Space War was made by MIT student Nolan Bushnell, and Bill Pitts see Space War, so they turned that into Computer Space, the first arcade game we played. The very first game we played on the channel was Computer Space in the arcades. And then shortly after that, another game was out called Galaxy Game, which we weren't able to play, but we did showcase it on the channel. And that's where they start. So their history begins where our channel begins, which is fascinating. But we know now, I could have gone way earlier. I could have gone mainframe systems, maybe even late 40s to see a few games. I could have gone Tennis for Two. You know, there's so much more that we know now as far as the history of video games. I'm glad I didn't go that far back. We wouldn't be in 1982 now if I did. But then the next page shows, after that, then it starts to break down Ralph Baer, which I would definitely bring him up. The brown box and making the first, getting the light sources on either side of the screen, which eventually turns into the Magnavox Odyssey. Because the game is just a couple lights on the screen, and then you have the overlays that help you out. And then after that, we have Pong. So they're going through their history really similar to us. So Pong in the arcade kits, and that's where everything gets really big. So you kind of have, in the very beginning, the brown box turns into the Odyssey, and then Pong in the arcades. But it's essentially the idea of, you know, an object moving left and right across the screen. And the world was floored of Pong, and Pong was everywhere at that point. There's even standalone consoles in Japan and other countries that we didn't hit on the channel because it's just Pong in different flavors. We're mostly focusing on the interchangeable cartridge or playing multiple games. Everything can't be Pong, you know. All right, so this is... Okay, let's go move on to the next page. So the next one is, after that, then he follows up Pong with Breakout. And then after Breakout, they go to 1975... And then General Instruments unveils the revolutionary AY38500 dedicated chip, capable of holding enough instruction data to play up to 4 paddle and 2 target games. And this is big. It's basically saying the integrated chip, because before this we were using transistor to transistor logic, and a lot of the arcade games we weren't able to play on the channel was because they didn't have a microchip inside. But after that, that's whenever Coleco starts doing the Telstar arcade, which we didn't see on the channel. It's the one that has the gun and the wheel attached to the standalone console. Yes, and Puppy Pong. Have you ever been to the International Video Game Museum? They have a exhibit for it. It's great. And then Bushnell responded to the advent of the chip with the new Atari division, and that's when everything kicks off. He signs a deal with Sears, everyone from the computer companies and candlestick makers leaping aboard the video game bandwagon, and it was tons and tons of Pong everywhere after that. Signs a deal with Warner Communications, sells out $28 million for the full ownership of Atari. And between 1976 and 1980, Atari introduced several intriguing hardware products, including Indy 500, Video Pinball, and doesn't say the Atari, but yeah, the Atari 2600 or the VCS was big. And of course, they bring up Rebound and a few other games, and then the very iconic Space Invaders, the killer app for the Atari VCS. And over on the right side, right above my head here, is their history, starting in 1962, and then also 1966 with Ralph Baer, then Computer Space Galaxy Game, and then this side ends with the Magnavox Odyssey. And then they also break down the Channel F, so it's interesting seeing them bring up their history now in 1982. We've got so much more. It's not easy playing every video game in the history of the world. All right, so the next page on the top left is what your house looked like with the Atari VCS at home, and they call it the best-selling programmable video game. At this point in 82, it's March. I don't know for sure the numbers, but I'm pretty sure this one's still up there as the best-selling programmable system. Notice how they don't say console, they just say video game. And then they also bring up the Odyssey 2 that came out, which it actually was first in Europe as the Philips Video Pack, and then Odyssey 2 later. And then their timeline continues with 1972, and Pong is released. 1973, Universal Research introduces the world's second home video game. Company does not go on to become Avis of the new industry. I love all this stuff. This magazine is so good. When I first saw this, I wanted to read the whole thing, and I did, but I read it several times because it's exactly what we want to do. This would be the best magazine that I could have had in 1982. So here we go. They break down 1973. Magnavox introduces the Odyssey. which I think that's at least. Well, wait a second. Yeah, Magnavox introduced the Odyssey. I always said it was the end of '72, from what my records. So interesting. And then 1975 is the LSI, large scale integration chip. Sears handles Atari's home video game products. And then where is it? Coleco used the Telstar Arcade. Okay, 76, the first programmable Channel F in 1976. Yeah, so Channel F, they still call Fairchild, is the one that first had interchangeable games. And then buys Atari, Warner Communications buys Atari for $28 million. The historic Gametronic Conference brings all video game leading sites together at San Francisco. In 1977, there was a Gametronic Conference? That's funny. Yes, with the really funky ones. And ahead of its time. Very different, because, Atari's just moved the joystick 8 ways and push a button, right? And then 1978, the Pong Worry Nation has Magnavox Odyssey 2, Battle of Professional Astrocade. And then 1978, small Japanese pachinko manufacturer comes up with Space Invaders in the arcades. They bring that up. Nice. They go overseas and give a nod to Japan. And then 1980, Mattel has the first modular game-playing computer. The Intellivision comes out, which it was early announced, and you could get some games in 79, because I think we played some in 79. And then 1980, ex-Atari designers left Atari and formed Activision. 1981, Atari introduces Asteroids to the arcades. 81, Atari enters the home computer field with the great space game Star Raiders. An influx of female arcaders makes the game of the year Pac-Man in 81. Now, they say Asteroids in 81, but I thought Asteroids was 80. And Pac-Man was... Oh, okay, well, if you think in Japan. Yeah, that's true. So we're on the world scale. They're mostly on the North American scale here. And then Electronic Games comes out, and then they say the Color Quadrascan, which is vector-based graphics. It is slightly different, but the term they wanted to trademark, Quadrascan, for everything that was Atari. All right, our next page is everything new. What's all the new cool stuff in March 1982? Rechargeable batteries for C and D batteries. I think they already had rechargeable batteries, so it can't be the new thing. Maybe the way that they charge is new. And then over on the left side is the EZ port. Apple owners long suffered with not-so-secret sorrow. Every time they wanted to plug and unplug a paddle or joystick, the whole machine must be opened up. Not anymore. They have an easy port in the front, just like on the Atari system. And then we have some electronics furniture. Oh, man, look at that. If you want even more wood grain in your house, use some of those. With, I believe that's the APF Imagination machine on the top. They don't even talk about that in the magazine, but there it is on the table right there. The full unit. So it has the MP1000, which attaches to the whole Imagination machine. Yeah, you just open the whole computer, take the whole case off. That's the Apple II in a nutshell, or a computer shell. Now let's go on to the next ad. This is Stone of Sisyphus. Really cool artwork, very metal. Game itself is all right, but it's by Adventure International. $30. Now, the Electronic Games Hotline. What is the newest, coolest news? Atari Report says that Super Breakout and Star Raiders are coming to the VCS, which we've already seen Super Breakout, got it. Star Raiders, Defender, and Pac-Man, and Galaxian. Galaxian, I think we haven't seen that one yet for the VCS, but it's coming soon. And then they say Steeplechase, Stellar Track, Tempest, and Centipede are also. So they're claiming they're all coming to the VCS, at least it says here. Yes. The box TVs. I love them. And then next is computer shorts, because now they're talking about computer games. New for the TRS-80. I believe that's the color computer Gorgon version, right? Because they don't really say the Coco there, but it's got to be. They talk about Nasir Gabelli. Most popular computer games for series software include Gorgon, Firebird, and then online systems. Sierra Online has Jawbreaker, and then their high-res adventure series. From the original Apple II, they're going to be bringing to Atari. Yeah, that's right. I don't know why they don't say Coco. Give the Coco some credit, right? Yeah, they see TRS-80, oh, here on the right side. Color Computer, Electronic Gaming. 6 months ago, a batch of new games from Tandy and the appearance of several independent software suppliers is beginning to end the software drought on the Coco. We've seen plenty for the Coco, though. Will successful Mark Turmel, the doctor who created the Offbeat Sneakers game for Sirius Software. And our next section is a game we won't see. But there it is. It's another Dungeons & Dragons handheld by Mattel. This one has more of a board game mix video game. So that's the reason we haven't seen it on the show. But really cool. Did not know about this one. Anybody had that at home? Because we played the Dungeons & Dragons handheld, but it's the kind that uses LCD display. This one actually has pieces that you move around. So cool. Oh, so this was right on the edge. So they probably just called it the TRS-80. This is a TRS-80, and this is just a TRS-80 that can use color. Oh, right? Yeah, that must have been nuts. Oh, you did see it. I've never seen this one before. They're also breaking down some more things that Mattel is doing. Dungeons & Dragons standalone maze game is the one we see over there with Space Invaders and Asteroids. I don't see them saying Intellivision. They just say Mattel. I'm thinking handhelds. And then the Tabletop Pac-Man. Yes, by Coleco. Oh, yeah, there it is. The other one we've seen. And they even say they're going to be doing Galaxian soon. We will see that one later. Galaxian 2, which we've seen. And Space Invaders 2 Escape. And here it is, the very rare... it's not the original Intex, but there it is. Intex made several standalone handhelds. That's the Galaxian 2, which is just one game. But I thought it was the Selecta game at first. The Selecta game was the interchangeable cartridge handheld, the second ever. And that one I think they called Galaxian 3, or Space Invaders 3 or something like that. Because it's supposed to be the one you could switch the cartridges out. And then this one is a weird one. I've never heard of this one. It's another one by Intex. This is the only time we're going to see it probably on the channel. It's called Escape 1000 Mazes. It's a first-person perspective handheld. So cool. Didn't know this one existed. And in my history looking up handhelds, didn't know it was here. So there it is. A first-person handheld game. There it is. Amazing. And next is PDI. The latest company to succumb to the irresistible lure of electronic gaming world. Because of developers like Activision branching off, doing their own thing, so they just make the games and not have to worry about the hardware itself or the VCS. A lot of other companies are starting to pick that up, like we saw the iMagic that's going to be picking up steam in 1982, and what was the other one? Off the top of my head, I can't think of the more popular ones because this just blazons Activision all over the place. And then scrolling on a little bit more, they have the what's coming new for the Odyssey. They say that there's a Pac-Man coming in, but they have Casey Munchkin. Maybe they're talking about the Casey's Crazy Chase. But the one-of-a-kind one is Monkey Shines, which we've seen too. That one's great. And then the upcoming Great Wall Street Fortune Hunt, which they're making it like it's going to be as good as Quest for the Rings, but it's really not. Sorry to break it to you. Too bad. All right, so let's scroll a little bit more. This one is the winners of the World National Champions of the tournament held in Chicago's Expo Center. The Coin World has national champions, and it looks like centipedes behind them. It says poor attendance is probably attributed to the cost and scheduling of the tournament. No, I think poor attendance is because you're not going to get a lot of people to watch a tournament of video games in 1982. The grand prize, it looks like Atari backed it. The grand prize was $50,000 in prizes, tournament games, and TGI was also a sponsor. So how about that? And I guess those are the winners there on the right side. And they got Activision talking about Kaboom here. Another one that they rave about in the magazine. And then there it is, iMagic on the scene. iMagic's first team, a screenshot, everybody. Yeah, we're going to see a lot of games by them. Really excited for that. And then over on the right side, they're talking about the Play Cable. Did anyone have that? The Play Cable was you subscribe. It's Mattel, right? Yeah, Mattel takes care of it. Subscribers purchase the master component of the Intellivision system for their local cable operator. And then the data channel can store up to 15 game programs. After the home arcader selects the game, the Jared adapter selects the correct code, and it transfers it to the computer memory chip. Play Cable rotates available selections, periodically giving subscribers access to the complete Intellivision library. Play Cable was one of the very first times it really isn't like you're downloading the game, but it's almost like using cable instead of cable television. It's a way to make the games come to your house via a cable. It's so cool and way ahead of its time. So Play Cable. I've seen ads for it and commercials for it. No way I had the money for that, or my family had the money for that. All right. Which game do you want to play? That one. Okay, download it. They didn't even use the term download it. And then over on the left side, it is this is the other side of the picture of the tournament. And the Clowns and Circus Atari coming in. I don't know what that one's about. But on the right side is the more interesting one, adult video games, which you've already seen the first two. My money goes to Streaking as the first game, but I really have no proof of that. And then, of course, Soft Porn Adventure as one of the first adult games. But this one's announcing a computer software guide to adults-only computer games, The Dirty Book. Published quarterly, promises to print program listings for games. How long did that last? Where it's only going to talk about adult video games? A user's guide to erotic software. When you really want everyone to know you don't have a girlfriend or a wife. And it says at the bottom, sounds like the kind of stuff that might make a green screen turn red with embarrassment. Oh, it did? Another ultra classy one. Okay, so this is the full page spread of everything. The hotline, Odyssey, the play cable. Everything happened at the tournament with the Atari winners. Who won? It doesn't even have their names there, does it? It says, okay, Eric Ginner emerged as the winner of the open singles competition, pocketed a check for $12,000, and then Okesu Han walked away with $4,000. So there you go, as the female arcader supreme. In March 1982, that's some good cash for just playing some games. All right, our next section is, do we have the full page spread for it? Yeah, there it is. Slay the Dragons, an introduction to computer adventures by Arnie Katz. So we'll break it down into two parts. So the first part is, it's just talking about what adventure games are. And this one kind of blends in role-playing games too. They talk about the reason why they're combining computer with console and arcade and everything all in one magazine is because you can't deny how strong the adventure game genre is. Not just text adventure, but the Ultima Wizardry games, they're too big. Computer adventures are blazing a trail. They have the Dungeons and Dragons style games that they're talking about over on the right side here. RPGs are generally played on a series of semi-connected episodes. Characters accumulate experience as a result of their exploits and gradually rise in power during the course of their heroic careers. As long as they don't get taken down by the satanic panic, Satan may take over. The four most popular fantasy roles that you would play are right here, they say. The Wizard, Dwarf, Cleric, and Warrior. You be the judge. So they even give you a small snippet of what it's like having a Dungeon Master with an example of Adventure on the VCS. Fantasy Fun. Really great game. Still in 1982. So they talk about what it means to be a Dungeon Master, what a Dungeons and Dragons game is like. And then text adventures. What are text adventures? And graphic adventures. We add pictures to the text and have some fun. And then the action adventures, which it just means that you're moving around. But I still hold for, because I'm a big stickler for genres. If it's an adventure game, you're not doing anything that has action. You're doing something that's going to involve your head. Like whenever we were playing Deadline, you didn't have to do something quickly. I guess maybe type fast, but you didn't have to do a quick reflex. Oh, yes, the Epix games. Oh, yeah, when we went from one to the other one was sword thrust, because you saved your character to move it to different scenarios. Really cool. And they call this one, this one's interesting because they break down the types of adventure games. Text adventure was, just a person manipulating on-screen characters, inputs 1 or 2 word commands. Oh, they only say the 2-word text parser here. There's more now. Think of Zork. And then the augmented text adventure, they say it's basically similar to the standard text adventure, but add extra dimension in a form of audio-visual enhancements. We've only played one text adventure game that had voice. They were talking to us. And then we have the illustrated adventures. Actual pictures replace the descriptions. Okay, and then they have action adventures, where you use the joystick, one-letter commands like get, shoot, or examine. And then they say graphic adventures are the newest arrival in the computer adventure scene, combines elements of all 4 types. Do they have an example of what they mean by all 4 types? They do not. So they broke it down even more than I thought. Pretty impressive for 1982. I'd like to know what they mean by the example of combining everything together. I wonder if that means like Appventure to Atlantis. They would call that a graphic adventure game because it puts several different elements in one. All right, our next section is, how do you make an arcade game? And this is so cool. Breaks down arcade machines, kind of give you a history of where they come from, how they get sold. You can see an example of behind the scenes inside Centipede. A peek at the sophisticated program boards housed within the game cabinet. Love it. So cool. See, this is a great read for 1982 when the arcades are, the golden age is still hitting strong. It's showing them loading up onto the assembly line. And then over on the right side, what is this? It's a picture of the gameplay of Warlords. I gotcha. Yeah, there we go. And they have an example of Red Baron here. A lot of the games we've seen overseas, the arcade is still where we're getting the craziest high quality video games. And we got Tempest, 2 different examples of it, and Warlords on the left. And then the full spread, very cool. Yeah, they even go through the history of beginning when they start to program the game, how it goes through testing, and they put it into a arcade for people to play and see which ones last and which ones don't. A first look, by the way, because I don't think a lot of people are talking about this or giving this kind of background of arcade systems. So helpful. I mean, even now it's awesome. So back then, this would have blown my mind. And what can you do? You can own your own arcade at home. Interlogic has Asteroid, Phoenix, Space Invaders, Pac-Man. Interlogic, how much does it have? No, nothing? All right, and then we just continue with the rest of the history. They talk about how Atari now releases Missile Command and Asteroids in the 2 home versions, and then what happens on the Odyssey with Casey Munchkin, UFO, Monkey Shines. All this we've seen on the channel. And then they say, for the present, video game manufacturers remain unsure as to whether the average American is ready to buddy up to a computer. Atari, it is reported, will soon begin production of a super video game system capable of presenting coin-op quality programs. I'm pretty sure they're referring to the 5200 because they called it the super system. The question for now is, at what point does the video game system meet the computer? As the latter simultaneously becomes cheaper and more powerful, it won't be long before the 2 segments of the electronic gaming hobby are joined together as one. They still haven't. Already the floppy disk is vying with the ROM cartridge as a medium of storing games. One thing's for sure, if the first decade of video games is any indication, the next 10 years ought to provide plenty of excitement both on and off the home screen. Love it. Yeah, the joysticks really messed it up. Yep. And of course, the North American crash. That would do it too. All right, so let's go to our next segment. This is the Player's Guide to Electronic Science Fiction Games. Oh, yes. And there it is, Space Invaders 2. The Select-A-Game. Yeah, there it is. That's the interchangeable cartridges handheld. So this is just breaking down the history of space games. We started with space games, with Space War, they say. And then Pong, and then Space Invaders. And then they have a lot of different Space Invaders variants, but not really as much as what we've seen on the channel. The electronic spaceship, I can't even read that, covers the universe. Oh, and Wizard of War is so good. Love that. And Asteroids, it is true, the space game or science fiction game has its roots in the arcades as one of the first. Oh, yeah, and you can't play just think of all the other systems that were out that you could play Atari games. They had the attachment on the Coleco. Oh, man, yeah, you need to be able to play the Atari 2600. All right, so they have lots of space examples here. Missile Command, futuristic video games for home arcades, Waging Interstellar War, the Odyssey 2, and the space games on there. So it is true, even though we've already played lots of space games, there's going to be a ton more later. Oh, this is so good. Yeah, great examples of the space games. And now we talk about computers. The Atari 800 really had better games than the Atari 2600 when it comes to how many people could play. And if you compare Asteroids on the VCS to the 800, it's so much better. Wait a second. That's the bra that Princess Leia wore in Return of the Jedi, but Return of the Jedi hasn't come out yet. Is this based on like Flash Gordon or something? And she may have been based on someone else. But there you go. Space games. Get the girl in her space bra and shoot aliens. And we'll scroll through this one. There it is. Hey, TRS-80 Invader game. Again, for the Coco, or the color computer. Super Star Wars. Star Warrior missile defense game. Very nice. Yeah, and now it's not something big, but back then it still was. It was huge. Here's the classic ad for Intellivision. Which baseball's better? I don't know. Intellivision, eh? Oh yeah, get the overlays going. There you go. Love it. So this is breaking down more history of space games. And it's kind of cool because they explain what we've seen on the channel. You take Space Invaders, move left, right, and fire, and slowly over time, they keep adding one little thing or change up a little thing to the space shooting games. And it's really cool having them showcase that here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Space Assault and Polaris are awesome. And there you go. Battle Zone is so good. Cosmic Quarter Snatchers cometh. With Defender, I also enjoy the excellent artwork they have. So there's the full page spread of what they were talking about with examples of asteroids, Astro Blaster, and Defender. Do they have a picture of Defender? I don't think so. All right, here it is, the moment we've all been waiting for, the Arcade Awards for 1982. Now, they're going to break down what they considered was the best games for 1981. Sorry, so the awards are 1982, but they're for 1981. So all this is for the best games they thought in 1981. So they started off with a video game of the year. They said Asteroids for Atari is the best video game of the year. Now, they're talking console, so just so you know, it's just the Atari console. I don't know why they would say Asteroids is the video game of the year for 1981. There's a lot of better ones out there, but they also include honorable mentions as the best video game. They say Quest for the Rings is honorable mention, Missile Command, and UFO for the Magnavox Odyssey. So here's my picks. If I was going to play and say all video games, we're talking across everything we saw in 1981, it's going to change probably every few months you ask me, because video games are like art. Sometimes, depending on how you feel, you may have a different view of what you think's better or not better. But if you twisted my arm and said, pick one game as the best game for 1981, I'd have to go with Donkey Kong. Of every single game we played, it takes too many marks correct, and it does too many things better than we've seen before. Plus, getting to play, taking the formula of Space Panic and then allowing you to have the jump mechanic, it was so fresh. It felt so good, and we know that how much is going to influence games later. Yeah, Chiptune's there with me too. Oh yeah. All right, so I won't do the honorable mentions for that one because that's pretty much like every video game. But if I wanted to break it down to consoles, like the best video game you could play on a home console, I'd say Missile Command for the Atari VCS. And then for honorable mentions, I'd use the Creative Vision in 1981. Auto Chase and Police Jump are close to being the best game you could play on a console. And they didn't do it here, but I'll do it just for fun. If I had to pick the best handheld of all the handhelds you could play in 1981, I'd say Coleco's Pac-Man as the best handheld. And then the honorable mentions would be Pac-Ri Monster and Galaxy 2. They're close. And then they go to their next section, which is the most innovative game. They say Quest for the Rings as the most innovative game, and I gotta say that's pretty good. I would hold up that would be the most innovative game of 1981. And their honorable mentions are Freeway. I don't know why that would be the most innovative, and then Asteroids, which is the same as their video game of the year. But if I wanted to say most innovative, I would go with Quest for the Rings too, definitely. And for honorable mentions, for me, I'd say Kicks as most innovative, Adventures of Robbie Rodo, Digging Through the Ground, and Snapjack, Jump Bug, and Boxing Bugs as most innovative game of 1981. And then their next category is, where is it? There we go. Their next category is Best Competitive Game. They say Tennis by Activision. It was okay. If I wanted to go only console, it'd be Hockey for Activision. But if I had my way, I would say the best competitive game was Asteroids for the Atari home computer. That one was 4 players simultaneous, so you could have 4-player Asteroids at the same time. I'd say that would be the best competitive game of 1981. And my runner-up would be Ghost Hunter, the Pac-Man where you could play together. The Pac-Man variant you could play together. It'll be honorable mention. You'll see later. You'll see later. All right, so the next one is... There you go. So their honorable mentions of competitive games is Ice Hockey and Warlords. Excellent. Those are really good. So the next category is the best solitaire game. They say Missile Command for Atari is the best solitaire game, and then Dodge 'em, both for the Atari VCS. If I was going to say best solitaire game, the game you're going to play by yourself, I'd say Ultima. Of all the games in 81, that would be the best game to play by yourself, Ultima. And then their next category is best science fiction game. They said UFO on the Odyssey 2. No. Best science fiction game? No way. They say Laser Blast. Still, it's all right, but for science fiction, there's much better titles than a UFO or Laser Blast. Is that all they got? Yeah, that's all they got for best science fiction game. So if I had to pick the best science fiction game of all of the science fiction games that we played in 1981, I'd go Space Seeker as the best science fiction game. That's the one that had the arcade that gave you a top-down view of the world, and you moved from the top of the world and rotated around the world and then zoomed in to shooting different shots around the Earth. It's amazing. And then the runner-up for my space best science fiction games is Space Fury, the color vector game, Space Hawk for the Intellivision, and Bosconian in the arcade. Those are some of the best science fiction games for 1981. Their next category is the best sports game. They say it's auto racing on the Mattel Intellivision, and their honorable mentions are Championship Soccer and Tennis as the best sports games. But I would go, if I had my money on the best sports game of all of 1981, I'd say Tournament Pro Golf by Data East in the arcade. That was the best sports game of 1981. Way ahead of its time. Yeah, right? It's not even the real screenshot. They don't do that in the magazine. I don't know if they can, or very well. So they just draw them by hand, it looks like, or using construction paper. All right, their next category is the best Pong variant. It really lets you know we're in 1982 and you have a category as best Pong variant. So they said Warlords, and I would, that's really good. Warlords is a really good Pong variant. And they also say Blockout Breakdown for the Odyssey, and then a really bizarre title, Whizball, which we played on the show, on the Fairchild. So Whizball is their other honorable mention. Shout out to Whizball. I like that one. That was good. But if I had my money on best Pong variant, I'd say Super Breakout. Super Breakout would be my best Pong variant. And the other one would be honorable mention is Syracuse for the Philips Video Pack. It's the one that had you bouncing rays of light back on enemies on the field. That was pretty ingenious. Yeah, and pretty simple, right? For Super Breakout. All right, so let's continue to the next category, which is the best audio visual effects. Why? Why did they say Kaboom by Activision has the best audio visual? Maybe audio a little bit, but visual for Kaboom? There's so much better games out there than Kaboom. And their honorable mention is Quest for the Rings with best audio visual. I don't get that. Yeah, so for me, if I had the best audio visual effects out of every game in 1981, I'd go with Turbo by Sega in the arcades. Has the beginning of sprite scaling effects. It's fantastic. That's the best audio visual for every video game. And then for mine, the honorable mention would be Red Baron in the arcade and New Rally X as the best audio visual. All right, so the next category is the best commercial arcade game. The best commercial arcade game. So kind of like I said for the best of the year, I'd still say Donkey Kong. But my honorable mention right past it is Frogger. And then Defender. Fantasy, I would say, of 1981 was another excellent honorable mention. Galaga, Gorf, and Venture. Those would be my honorable mentions of the best arcade game that you could play in 1981. They have Pac-Man as their number one, which Pac-Man, we played every game in the world. So we saw Puck-Man first in Japan in 1980. But then we have honorable mention Defender and Battlezone, which is another one that I don't think it was first released in 1980. Okay, good. Their next category is computer game of the year, of all computer games of 1981. And here we played so many computer games. They say Star Raiders by Atari. Oh, that's great. Great to hear. Star Raiders on the Atari 800 is their best computer game of the year. Now, we said Star Raiders was released at the end of 79. So we wouldn't, you could obviously play Star Raiders in 81 if you wanted to. It's still excellent. I still think Star Raiders is very good. But for us, playing every game in 1981, my number one game, a computer game in 1981, was Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. This is a top-down / role-playing adventure game where you can incorporate 4 people. You can plug all 4 joysticks into your Atari computer, and all 4 of you can play an adventure role-playing game. And everything can be controlled, and menus can be controlled using the joystick. It is the best computer game of the year. And my runner-ups for that is Mazogs on the ZX81 as the best computer game of the year. Lunar Leaper, Missile Command. Oh, wait, sorry. No, wait. No, wait. Sorry, not that one. Sorry, best computer game of the year runner-ups is Castle Wolfenstein, Ultima, Wizardry, and Eastern Front 1941. Oh, I think so, yeah. Yeah, that's true. It starts in 1981, so it may have their dates a little bit different, but we're going 1981 as the best computer game of the year. All right, so the next category is the best computer action game. And they have Jawbreaker by Sierra Online, or at that time, Online Systems. A Pac-Man style clone. Do they have any? No honorable mentions, but my best computer action game, I went with Polaris on the Coco. That is the best computer action game of all of 1981. And then my honorable mentions are Mazogs for the ZX81, Lunar Leaper, Commodore VIC-20 Lunar Leaper, Missile Command for the Atari 800, Asteroids for the Atari 800, and then Ghost Hunter as the best computer action game. And their next category is the best computer sports game. They say computer baseball, the SSI release. Strategic Simulations Incorporated Computer Baseball. And I would say for best computer sports game, I'm going skiing on the Coco. Skiing on the Coco is the best computer sports game, if you want to count skiing as a sport. And then runner-ups, I'd say hockey for the Atari 800, and snooker and billiards for the Atari 800 as the best computer sports game. Computer simulation, then I would say baseball, but yeah, no. Yeah, I don't think so. All right, so let's move on to our next. Is this the last one? Yes, our last category is the best computer adventure. They say Empire of the Overmind as the best computer adventure of 1981. No, it was out in 81, but Empire of the Overmind is not the best computer adventure game. The best computer adventure game, Zork 2 in 1981. That's the best computer adventure game. And my runner-ups are Sword Thrust, Curse of Crowley Manor, and then Adventure on the TI-99, because Adventure on the TI-99 was Scott Adams' 12 adventure games in one package. So I would say that's a really good deal for a computer adventure game. All right, we are only halfway through the magazine, but that was not only the history of video games from the perspective of 1982, but also the awards for the best games of 1981. So much fun. I love electronic games. That's where we're going to put our video game playing on pause. Hit escape, hit the break key, whatever you want to do. That's it for today, and like I always say, when are we going to get to Nintendo Power? Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the channel and joining me on my quest to play every single video game in order of release. We'll be streaming live every weekday at 9 p.m. Central, so join us and let us know if we missed any games along the way. This video would not be possible without Launchbox, RetroArch, and MAME. Tell all your friends there's some crazy guy named Chronologically Gaming trying to play every single video game. We have links down below that'll send you to places like our Discord and Patreon, and one that says all the video games we've ever played. If you go there, it's a list of everything, and you can click right to the game you want to see. Chronologically Gaming is the name to look for. We are perpetually retro, and we will catch you next time.